This session we're going to be working with clay, which is very exciting, which I know we've done a lot of painting in the past, and so this will be something completely different for everybody, and we're going to be learning about a local artist that we have with us tonight, Patience Brewster. So she's over here. Which thank you so much for being here tonight. This will be a unique project. We've never worked with, at least in my experience, once I joined the Art Masterpiece, working with clay. And so will be interesting. You know, some children I feel like they get super excited about that, wanting to use their fingers and working with squishy and hard and maybe even slimy things or whatnot. And others may be totally opposed to it. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it'll be something different and unique. And so in using the clay, we're going to try to do it with the idea of using Patience's work in mind. But let me give you a little background about Patience first. If you want me to share the year, she was born in 1952, okay, in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And she's had 15 generations of family there. Going all the way back to 1620, which is pretty amazing. Her whole family was very creative, and I think this is where her many talents stem from, which is pretty amazing that it's just kind of stayed within the family. She went to, and correct me, I'm hoping I've got it all correct, but the Boston Museum School, and RISD, is that?
I didn't go to RISD, no, I wanted to, but they didn't.
Oh, stop, okay. But you went to, is it the PCA? Which
Yeah,
is now
the
University of the Arts,
yeah.
Absolutely. She majored in printmaking and bookmaking and really thrived and enjoyed drawing and painting classes. She never truly stopped doing any of it, which is amazing, but she got her start, we were discussing earlier, illustrating children's books. And you'll see on the table a few of the books that we have tonight. And we will get our hands on more books for you to be able to read to the children, or we can get to the teachers ahead of time as well, so that they can kind of jumpstart the process a little bit, which I think will be great. As you'll see when you take a look through the books, the illustrations are absolutely amazing. And if you've seen any of her cards and ornaments as well and things, we talk about the element of whimsy, but also the attention to detail, I think, is just incredible. So all things that we can talk about when we're working with kids during their session. She's illustrated over 30 books and even writing a few of the books. And she worked with several greeting card stationery kind of companies, and has some of her illustrations with those greeting cards, holiday cards and such. So we'll have to talk. There's some frustration that went along with that, and I'd love to hear a personal story if you're willing to share on that experience. She started her own stationery company in 2002, and that prospered for 10 years. And then in 2009, this is when she started the ornament making, and has been working with different areas. I think it says here Mexico, the Philippines, and China.
Well, the ornaments we make only in the Philippines.
Okay.
And we made some silver jewelry in Mexico, and we made some fabrics in China.
Okay.
And the Filipinos are really very, very adept at making these very tiny and ornate things and making them over and over again. And the sculpting as well as the painting is something that if you ever go to that country, you drive by trucks and signs, and every single thing that isn't moving and all the things that are have stuff painted all over them, like Madonna and Mickey Mouse and Angelina Jolie all painted on one bus, and it has fringe and glitter and horns and all sorts of stuff on it. So they can't help but decorate things and paint things. So it's a culture where people have been doing this for a long time, which is part of what I like about keeping people doing something that is indigenous to their area.
Oh, that's wonderful. Patience continues to draw and paint and, using different forms, whether it's like this sketching drawing or using watercolors or, different types of paint and things, and with these ornaments as well that I don't have them on hand. I just started going through my own personal collection of ornaments, trying to prepare for the holidays, I was saying earlier, and I know they're in there somewhere, I just need to get through the mounds of it all, but it will be neat for the kids to be able to touch and feel those too, when working with it. So that's our background on Patience, and I don't know if you would like to share anything, or if anybody has any questions that they want to ask Patience directly. I think it would be, we're so lucky to have her here.
Yeah, I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has anything in any of those parts of bio or real life or frustrations.
Could you tell a story maybe about doing art with your own kids that we could share with these kids to make it relatable?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that in terms of how interesting it's going to be when you all get into the classroom with this clay and start working with, when you're working with your own children, their sort of areas of interest and their ability with their hands and their frustration levels, and not having actually put my hands on this clay. They're all different. I don't know if it's sticky or slimy or whether you're going to have to get through that, or if it just starts out like a Sculpey where it's kind of dry and they just, ideally, the medium is the message. I mean, it really is important to have a minute to just feel it, maybe just make a ball out of clay, maybe just make a long skinny snake out of clay, and maybe make a little square so they have some feeling about what the clay will do. I mean, that's to me what is enjoyable about the artistic process. It isn't enjoyable if somebody says, okay, make this out of this, and you're thinking, well, I don't want to make, a ballerina, I want to make a truck, or, whatever. Obviously, you're giving them the freedom to make something they're interested in making. And if they can get over and come up maybe with their idea first and then get their clay and then decide whether they like that idea anymore or not. But I was thinking that it might be nice to start out by building something very simple, just maybe a little Christmas tree, which may be something that you think at any level any child could do without feeling like they're not doing it right. And it could be a tree, or it could be a, what else could be, maybe just a wreath, and you could make some little berries to put on it, just a circle. Something simple that it would feel like everybody could do, and then the ones that want to really go crazy could go crazy. And I was suggesting maybe just some tools, because I like to have something pointy and something kind of sharp, so even a plastic knife, or if you had a pencil that was round and not with the flat sides, you could roll that little snake into a flat, long piece if you wanted to make letters, or if you wanted to make a stripe design around the tree, or make it look like ribbons. That's what you could do with a pencil. And then you could put little dots on it with the little point of the pencil. If they have little tools, you could talk about just putting a little design on a surface. I know maybe they're going to paint them later. Those are the things that just popped into my mind just since I walked in here 10 minutes ago. But with my kids, I would stop and see what they were able to do and just walk around and help anybody make a little, whatever it is they're frustrated with. And telling them to change their idea if it's not working. Try something else. Is this one too hard, or is this one too easy, or what? Is this one not making you happy? And mush it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the great thing about clay. Before it's dry, you can just flatten it out and start all over again. You make a snowman. Snowman's a pretty nice, simple thing to do, and you could either. I don't know about the drying process. If they made a snowman, they could get some tiny little sticks to stick in it. They could make the holes to stick the sticks in and glue it later if they weren't able to come with little sticks. Or we talked about embellishments. I mean, you could go crazy with little feathers to glue on it, or little wired things with little balls on the end like antennas. I like to put up those kind of things, but once you look at what it is that they're desiring to do, I think it's just trying to make that path enjoyable and feel like something's coming to fruition, no matter what it is in the end, which I'm sure you've all probably done in these classes before. That's the joy of it all.
I think you're so right, because and it's gonna be different for each child. Some are gonna go crazy and manipulate and keep working with it and doing stuff, and others are gonna go, this is it. And it's gonna be a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And so some finish in 5 minutes and some take the 47 minutes or whatever it is to get it done. So, yeah, but that encouragement is a key piece for sure. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Does anybody have any other questions at all that they want to address?
I'm wondering where you get your inspiration from. They're so whimsical and they're so unique, and I hear you talk about the Philippines, and I wonder if some of the embellishments and the flourish may be drawn from your experiences there. But
well, no, I actually discovered that after I'd already been doing it for 10 years. I didn't go meet the people that were recreating. When I make an ornament, I make a drawing, and it's very finished. It's a painting that's very finished, and there's no kind of question about what it is. And then I still don't know how to use a CAD program or computer programs to rotate things, so I personally will just, in cave woman style, draw the same thing in, if I've drawn a front view, I do a profile and a back view or whatever is necessary. This is the way we worked before there were computers and emails to cut everything back and forth. Now, I can scan everything and they've got it right then and there, and they've got all my drawings, and if they need more, they just ask for more. And I did make the first ornaments with clay and had them sculpted in 3D. Now they're all carved out of wood today and molded, so they're not really made out of clay. But often when I go over there, the wood sculpture is there, and I manipulate it. And if something's carved down too deeply, I will actually build it up with this very weird sticky clay that I had to get used to using, that they use over there. It heats up and it gets melty, and then as you work with it, it dries. So it's a completely different medium than I'd ever used. That's not answering your question. So my ideas didn't come from the Philippines. They all sort of started out coming from my own life and what I was missing. I didn't have a place I could find that I wanted to buy ornaments that I liked, and I didn't have a lot of money when I was little, and when I was working with my children when they were little. So I made things, and made them out of cloth, made them out of all sorts of stuff, but also made them out of salt dough and out of sculpey that you bake, and similar to the clay I think you're working with. And a lot of ideas came out of what I wanted, but also mistakes that you make, and I think that's an important thing to talk about with the children, is if it's not coming out exactly like you had in your mind, that you might want to just see what the clay is saying to you and see what it might want to, what shape it reminds you of when you look at it, and you might get inspired by that. So it's a combination of things. I usually start out with an idea, but as I'm working on it, maybe if any of you are writers or painters or whatever, you've had this happening where your story evolves or your illustration evolves as you work on it, and it kind of has its own story to tell. And hopefully that experience can happen to the kids in just a very, very initial kind of way. Does that make sense?
it does, yeah. Thank you.
What do you remember as a child about, like, did you came from a creative family, but did your parents take time to let you do that? Like, what do you remember making as a child, or when you really became interested in the process of creating? Because I think that's something we're trying to teach the kids.
Right.
If there was something we could say about, like, do you know what she did when she was little, or when she was in the kindergarten or third grade, her mom encouraged her to.
Well, there were people knitting around me and sewing and actually sculpting. My mother was a much better sculptor than I, and she painted, she dabbled in things. I mean, we grew up in the crib that we slept in, my mother made when she was in high school. She made some furniture. She went to a very cool school that did all sorts of crafts and things like that. But, so I grew up seeing that people could make, you know, tables and chairs, and if you feel that you can make something out of the resources around you, I really felt happy that I never was bored. And to this day, I don't understand boredom, because if we said we were bored, then we were given a job, we were given a chore. So it was much more fun to entertain yourself than to be given a chore. So I learned very fast to just be busy with doing stuff. And, you know, I made stuff out of ordinary, everyday things, and I think that's why in my hard artwork more than, well, in some of the ornaments too, there's a lot of anthropomorphic thing because, items, because I think I looked around and could see what something could be, you know, what, that these little sticks could become a little building, you know, you could build a little log cabin for a little doll that you might have, or, you know, I made a lot of things out of, while my mother was sewing when I was really little, I used to thread the needles for her because she didn't have cheaters, and then I'd start sewing up some little, you know, stuffed animal things. It's when I was really pretty young, and when I went to the beach, I'd bring back things I found, and then I'd make something out of them. I've kind of always been good at making something out of nothing, and drawing on paper is pretty much that. And that's still what I'm doing today. I'm still drawing on paper something that will become a card or an ornament or even a piece of furniture. I've designed furniture that I haven't made myself, but I design it and then it becomes those things. Or, you know, a tree skirt or any kind of all the products that you see, a necklace or whatever it's become, started out as a drawing. And that's another thing they could think about if you talk about that process, that if they have it in their mind and they want to start right with a sculpture, I think that's great, it's field clay. But if some children feel better if they draw it first, they could draw it first, and then they could even shape it right on the paper to see, make it the same size as what they made.
And that's also nice because that's your process.
Yeah,
that you
that's
draw
my
first.
process.
Yeah.
And I think there are those scientific brains. I've discovered that I've never, you know, studied engineering or anything, but as an artist, sometimes you become an engineer because you are trying to figure out how to make something, and you can figure it out either on paper or through experimenting with the medium itself. So if they have those two options, that might open up something to any child that might be just sitting there stumped.
Absolutely. I feel like, and that's in the previous projects last year, we did that. Some kids, they were trying to, they had to draw it out first for a few of their things
Right.
before they could
Yeah.
begin even that painting process, or just to feel it out.
Yeah.
That's,
I
and
mean,
they just did that
I find there are
instinctually,
children
which
that
I
are
think is
very
really cool.
literal, and there
Yeah.
are ones that are very scientific, and
Right.
there are ones that are extremely creative,
Yeah.
and there are ones that surprise themselves that never expected it.
Mhm.
But if you can go with whatever avenue seems to be right for that child on that particular day,
Right.
not that that's much of a challenge, but
Right.
yeah, that's the trick.
Great. Anybody else? Anything? Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a series of photographs of your process?
Yeah, and on our website that, you know, all of my, there aren't books or, there are cards and there are all of our ornaments on there. But there's a video, and I have no idea because I don't go looking for it, but there is a video of the process.
Yes. I
And
think
it
I
does
saw
show
something.
my drawings, and I'm trying to think if I have a quick something that would show that. you know, we've always talked about doing a video that specifically does that. I know the video that's on there shows the drawing and the drawings that I do from the sculptures. I draw on top of their sketches to adjust it, and, you know, before I go over there and get a hands-on version. So I'll look it out, and I could email that specifically to you so you don't have to go searching.
Great, great. And do you have during your week, do you have a set time that you like to work or that you start to draw?
When the procrastination is over.
Yeah.
The coffee and then the second cup of coffee. You know, I used to just be, when I was doing children's books, I had to be incredibly disciplined because I started a family the same time as I did that. So it was nap time, and, you know, any minute I could grab, whenever anybody was happy, that's when I would do it. And now I have more leisure, and unfortunately now there's a lot of business involved that's kind of getting in the way of the pleasure of the art. But, you know, artists always talk about procrastination, but it's really part of it, and it is, you know, you do have to get a little bit of a mojo going, and that's why I was saying, you know, rolling the clay out, or, you know, just making some balls or some squares or something. It's, you know, I have to get my pencil warmed up, and I notice when I've been just drawn for a few days, you know, you just don't, things have to, they have to evolve in your mind, and they have to physically evolve in your body parts to get the, and then if there's a momentum, once everything gets in the sync, you know, things can take off and hours can go by, and all of a sudden it's the end of the day and I don't even know what happened. It becomes a very beautifully meditative thing. And I think you see that happening with children. You see them all of a sudden, they're really into it and they are one with that project, and that's when the beautiful things happen.
And on your Christmas tree, do you have all of your ornaments from like forever, or does that stress you?
Sometimes. The problem with my life now,
You know, like if you walk in, what is your tree? That's what I'm saying, like, is it all your ornament, like for years,
sometimes
you know?
it is and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been, like right now we're doing a lot of we do photos all the time. And now with this change from, I didn't used to advertise anything. I didn't used to have to talk about my stuff myself. I had a whole bunch of reps and people that would do that. And now it's all us, so we do a lot of shots of things and decorating the house and doing little vignettes all over the place. So by the time Christmas comes, I'm usually I've done like 97,000. And you know what I find? If I decorate with my own thing, it's usually all the broken things that I feel sorry for. I have all these things that have like a crack here or something that I intended to fix, and I'll bring them home to glue them up and then use them for something. So, and then some years I just have this, you know, cleanse where I just put on, you know, glittery, silvery things and have to have a little piece, and sometimes a few ornaments make their way up there, so it's different every year. I never do the same thing. I used to do the same thing all the time, now I don't.
Great question, everybody. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know
Sure.
if you want to stay, please stay, but I know if you need to go.
No, I just wanted everybody to know I'm happy to answer any questions if they come up. I know Kelly knows how to get in touch with me, and I offer my phone number. I'd be happy. I'm so happy that you guys are doing this in the school. It is, the first time I met you guys in the library, I thought, holy smokes, this is a dream. Because I really think there's a vacuum and a void in the arts, and it's so satisfying to know that we have all these great people doing this in this town. And I've now experienced, I've heard it here, but being at dinner with your kids the other day, and we just passed by you, and they were so excited about this part of their schooling that now is a big deal. So I'm thrilled you're doing it. I'm thrilled with the artists that you're bringing to their attention, and you know, when I was little, I went to the Boston Museum and saw things that I can still see today, and they still affect me today. You know, they were little Persian miniatures and this John Singer Sargent beautiful painting that's there when you walk into the American collection. And you know, my mother did go down into the art store and bought me these little Japanese brushes because I really loved the rice paper paintings. And you know, there were random, really crummy art supplies around our house all the time. But there was something very special about having this one kind of brush that did, and just knowing that there was one kind of brush that did one kind of painting. And I think I put in my bio that it wasn't until I went to college that I actually spent real money on good supplies and discovered the difference. I mean, this isn't something you probably want to tell the kids, but if they had the real sculpting tools, it would be a lot easier. But it's really great to have just the clay right now. I mean, that's a really big deal, to be able to talk about this and then jump in and try it. That is the best. And you know, you're going to have some happy endings, and you're going to have some kids that might go on and do it, you know, really, really get into it. So I think it's super cool that you're doing it, and I think it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
You might not be able to answer it. I wondered if you ever faced like a lack of confidence where you compared yourself. I see like my own children who are very interested in arts, and then they'll say, well, they'll look next to the kid that really has natural talent,
Right.
and then take a step back, like that's not for them. So how do you make art into like,
I think that's what this thing is all about.
yeah.
I mean, if you look at an illustrator like Eric Carle, who rips up pieces of paper and sticks them on, you know, there's no drawing, there's no sharp pencil there. You know, if you look at the Monets, it's all about moving that paint around. There's a kind of art for everybody, and that's what I was talking about, the engineer, you know, I love the sharp pencil. I really love that. I do love that Japanese painting that's just all about the brush stroke, which is, I mean, there are worlds of difference in the art world. And somebody who can draw something that makes, you know, looks just like that, or somebody who can make a cartoon and really wow their pals at one age, is maybe going to do that same cartoon 20 years from now. There might be another kid who's really develops that talent into something else. But art is just a totally evolutionary process. And when you ask about it, whether I was ever, you know, comparing constantly to this day, I mean, from day one, I could just suddenly, I had this whole flash of things like the pages of a great big book go by of, you know, the first time you try to do any kind of art, you're looking at, usually what's great about bringing these masterpieces is, why not, you know, look at the best. And you're not going to do what it took somebody many, many years or decades. You know, when people ask me how long did it take you to do this, if I just did a painting, I said, well, about 63 years. Because, you know, you didn't do it until you got to this point. But, and you know, some days you do something really fast, some days it takes forever, and some days you threw something away and then you pull it out of the trash and it looks better to you. But in the process, you know, I didn't get into art school. To me, that was I didn't get into RISD, which was the premier art school where my sister went, and everybody said, oh, you'll get in. I didn't get in, and then I had to scramble and try, you know, applying to some other art schools. But as soon as I got to art school, you know, you're a freshman, and it was a whole new world, seeing people that really were focusing only on art and nothing else. And I was at the bottom of the pile, the total bottom of the pile. And everything I did was just ripped off the wall and trashed. And that happened for, you know, half of the year. And then you go to your major, and all of a sudden you're at the bottom of your major. And, you know, it was just a long, long crawl trying to accomplish what you wanted to do. And then you get out in the real world, and I kept being told that I wasn't like anybody else, and I thought that was a good thing. But nobody really knew what to do with me. And it turned out I knew what to do with me, but I didn't have the confidence in myself in the beginning, because I kept thinking, I must not be doing this right, because nobody can see that this little drawing could be sold on a wall, it could be a greeting card, it could be made into something else, but it took 10 years for that to happen, because people kept saying, well, I like it.
Right.
Like a piece of art that your mother might say, I like it, and you know it's just your mother that likes it. And I believed them, you know, I believed them, well, I like it, but I don't think anybody else will get it.
Yeah.
But then bit by bit, as different kinds of people responded to different things, you start thinking, well, I'm not completely wrong about this, you know, actually somebody did respond to this or whatever. And it is a combination of, it's a really great thing when somebody responds to your artwork, but it's also very lonely a lot of the time as you try to figure it out. And it just, I think the important message is that it doesn't always happen fast, but sometimes it does. So the thing I always say is you really never know what you're going to end up with in the end, no matter how carefully you start out with it. It's an evolutionary process, and you just have to not give up. Just don't give up on it until the clay is dry, and then you gotta start.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book that you illustrated?
Oh, people always ask that, and you know, I used to say it was kind of like your children, and you were always kind of preoccupied with the one that you were working on at the moment, because it took up all your time, kind of like your new baby.
Yeah.
You know, I like them all for different reasons. I mean, that book happened right around 9/11, and there was something about the folk tale of the mer baby, and my daughter's called Mer, Marietta is called Mer, so she was like my little mer baby, so I used her as that. So that's very personal. The Rabbit Inn I wrote while I was in my house.
You and your daughter?
Well, I don't know if that's so much me, but it definitely,
Because the hair.
it's both kind of, it's like my daughter is the mother and the baby a little bit. But, you know, I thought there was a message there, because it's about sort of alien beings, the mer people and the regular people, and they have an animosity and fear of each other, and then they end up, when this one guy sort of just breaks through the fear to return this baby, all of a sudden they can be simpatico with each other, which is a good message always. But you know, the ones I wrote myself were easier for me, because if I wanted to draw, you know, this hallway in my own house, I could go and draw my own hallway, which, like in the Rabbit Inn, I did that. It's all my own house and my own story, and I just moved into my house and had 10 million things we had to do to it, so it's kind of about that. And so, you know, there isn't really a favorite. There's sort of maybe one favorite drawing in each book where it went perfectly right, and mostly I see the mistakes in all of them where I wish I had a little more time, because there was always a deadline, and I always wished I had a little more time.
Along the same lines, do you have a character or a figure that sort of was your breakout figurine, like a pig or a turnip or a...
Yeah, well, there was actually, speaking of turnips, there were a couple of rutabaga that we used on the cards. Each iteration of my life, you know, with the books, I had an interesting thing happen. I was working really hard on this portfolio to bring to New York to show to children's book illustrators, or publishers, because I really thought that's what I wanted to do. And it's very competitive, and I never thought it would happen, so I worked really hard on these things that I thought were very, you know, current and trendy. And then at the last minute, when I was walking out the door, I grabbed 2 drawings that I'd made for my husband, you know, like our 1-month anniversary card and one other card. And one was 2 old rabbits drinking wine together, not really appropriate for a children's book. And the other one was 2 pigs looking at themselves in a mirror. And without fail, everywhere I went, those were the 2 that people responded to, because I was only being myself. I wasn't trying too hard. So those drawings meant a lot to me, because they were the ones that got my foot in that door. And then in the ornament world, there was the company I worked for 10 years before I went to the Philippines and started doing it myself. was a company called Department 56, and there was a woman who was just walking through the trade shows and looking at cards, and she picked up my Santa card, and it was a funny skinny Santa with spindly legs, and I had a whole story about him. He wasn't actually Santa, he was a guy who finally found a job he truly loved, was the title of the piece of art that I did, and I was just imagining him, you know, finding a job at the North Pole and making stuff and being happy. And kind of this funny looking thing that people responded to, so he was the first ornament that somebody else gave, you know, another one of those things of thinking you're not quite good enough, gave validation to by, you know, actually paying me money to have it made, and then they sold a lot of him, and he the, you know, 6 other things that I made right in the beginning just surprised everybody, and that was real, that was a major validation. So, long answers to these questions.
It'd be fun to show the kids, you know, even just like a plain, like bringing in an orange or something and say, you know, having the card to sort of draw back to it and say, just started with this, and then gave it legs and like a funny
There is an
nose
orange.
and-
There is an orange
Yeah.
ornament, or at least we always had a tangerine at the toe of our stocking. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel of new ideas
Yeah.
for Christmas, it's like, oh, the tangerine in the toe, we can do that, and the pomegranate, we can do that. So, yeah, that is that'd be a good idea. Yeah. I will bring in I will offer some cards for the kids, and I'll see if we can put in some that they might be able to do that. I just thought I'd get some cards that you can give to the kids in the classes.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. So please let me know if there's anything else I can do. Have a good night, everybody. You're welcome. Thank you.
That was awesome. So excited. So, yay, we're so lucky to be able to get to talk about patience and to work with the clay. And I think, you know, going in, you heard it straight from her. Like, there's so many different ways you can approach this. So we'll have books if we can get our hands on the clip of the video, which I've been on the website. I think I've seen exactly what she's talking about. But if she has something that's maybe more intimate or more and shorter, that's kind of from the beginning stages, I think will be really great too. You know, coming into the classroom, having them, you know, get excited about it and learning about the artist kind of one-on-one, giving them as much information as you can, I think that's super important. But the most important is actually working on the art. And, you know, we can give them factual information, and which is critical, but you know, for this project in particular, it's really manipulating that clay and having fun with that clay. And so I think that's going to be our biggest takeaway. So what we've got, we've created a binder. I'll kind of explain everything to maybe simplify the process a little bit.
The binder.
Well,
We're gonna
no,
have
stop.
4 of them.
It's not. So there'll be
So
4.
2 at State Street, 2
Yeah.
at Waterman.
There'll be 4 bins. Gosh, I hope it's okay to put this on top. Is that right? Okay, thank you. So we'll have everything in the bin that you might need, as well as in the shelves of the closets too. The extra books that we'll get our hands on, and prints, some ornaments. We'll try to put them in every bin, and then you'll have this binder inside, and that'll give you the information that will either come out via email, but you can have it here. And it just kind of gives you the info that you might need. So these things, we'll try to put a few of everything inside so that you can bring them into the classroom and have the kids, you know, touch them, feel them, look at the detail. Like I said, when I get my hands on those ornaments too, because they're going to see that. They're going to see that, oh my gosh, looks like a big round ball that she just put toothpicks on and had some, you know, like, they'll start to kind of create their own ideas, which I think will be great. In the binder, it just kind of gives you a little bit of everything about what the project is, what the type of clay is, and also talking a little bit about the science behind the clay, which I don't necessarily know if everybody knows the facts about, you know, what is clay, where does clay come from, and the kids will love questions like that. They love to, you know, they'll come up with some crazy ideas and it'll be a lot of fun. And I put together two with the help of these guys, which is great, of what those questions are. Every binder will have this little 5-question set. The answers to the more scientific questions are on the back, but the kind of free questions are, how does the clay feel in your hands? And does the clay change when the way it feels the more you work with it? My other one is, do you think that Patience Brewster creates the perfect piece of art on her first try? You know, just different things to kind of spark conversation, and while they're working with the clay, and even afterward, because like we talked about earlier, some are going to finish early and some are going to take the entire time. So I don't know how you guys have been feeling about the projects, but if there are different things going on, then if the ones that finish early can sit in a circle and have a few of the storybooks, and when those who are third graders can read to themselves, or one of the other moms or the teacher in the classroom or dads can come in and sit down and work with them and read with them while the others are still working on it, or looking, at the items that are in there. So roughly we have I think 19 to 22, 23 kids in each class. So we're going to put the individual pieces of clay for the kids in a Ziploc baggie that'll be in the bins. We'll try to have it all ready for you starting next week, so that they'll be ready to go. So you can just come to these bins, see what you need from the bins that you want to work with. This is all very individual. I think that's what's extremely awesome about this project, is there's not a strict curriculum or guideline to go by. You can, you've got the ability to do whatever you want with it. You can go by exactly what these guidelines say here, or you can have fun with it. So, but the items will all be in this bin in each of the classrooms, or each of the closets. What am I missing? I apologize.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
We're gonna cut all that clay out, so if anybody wants to come in and cut clay with us,
Right.
we'd love it.
We'd love it. We could have a play party.
Yeah, and they're gonna take, after they make the clay, everybody's gonna get a Ziploc bag, and those kids, it's gonna dry, at home.
At home, so they'll take it in their bag at home
Yes.
at the end of the day.
We're not-
We're
Gonna be responsible for what happens from that
Yeah.
to painting it. It can get painted, it can get set for 2 weeks.
Right.
We're gonna make a little sheet for the parents that you will have to give each kid that can go home in their backpack that said, when this is set and you wanna paint it, this is what you can
Right.
do for your kids.
It'll have to sit out and dry. So, but
Right.
there will be a little insert to go in with each of the bags, and their little pieces of art that they've created, to go home with them.
We
And,
contemplated the baking and, the whole process.
yeah,
We kept thinking, what happens if one of the ornaments falls and then the kid doesn't have it, and then everybody would need to come in again for a second paint job. It may be a disaster. It would be a disaster. And then if she said that she would give every child a card, so we can put cards on everybody's table, and don't let them pick. Just put it, put them all out. And maybe that is a time that after they're done, or another time with the teacher, they could write a holiday note to their parents or their grandma or whoever, or just keep the little card, whatever you want to do in your class. I think we talked a lot about, we want you to have the bin so that if you do not want to print anything off the night before, or you're like, I'm going to do art masterpiece, there'll be 2 bins in Waterman and 2 bins in State Street, but then there's so many cool things that people did with Monet, so you can use your own creativity. And
yeah, that's really it.
I'd like to just say one thing about including other parents from your classrooms. So I think sometimes other parents might want to be involved but feel nervous about what, they don't want to be asked to run the whole show. Or they say, I'm not artistic, but all of our kids' parents may, at one time or another this year, want to at least come in and volunteer to be your helper. Mm-hmm. So I was just thinking the easiest way to do that might be to say, if you've scheduled your date for a week out, is to ask the teacher to include it in her write-up for the Friday folder, just so the parents know the date and time, and just to be inclusive and say everyone's welcome to come in and help for that hour.
Right. It does really help, having, the more hands you have in the classroom, it makes a big difference. On all levels, cleanup level, setup level, working with the kids, all of it, for sure, it does, so,
I did reach out to a parent, it's not the only one.
yeah.
She came in, she had a blast. I
Yeah.
said, there's no commitment, I'll let you know when I go in again, and she goes, great, if I can do it, I'll love to do
Yeah,
it, so.
there seems to be a lot of parents, I think, that too, like, they'd rather be the behind the scenes, like
Right,
doing that
right.
versus getting up and talking to the kids directly
Right.
about what it is they're learning about and how the project will go and things like that,
So I was
so,
really glad to have her.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank God you're here.
It does make a big difference. You know, it came up earlier, about different paint. The clay could be very well messy. I was talking to Andy earlier, you know, it's not gonna be as messy as painting can be, but it's inevitable that they're gonna be working with it, and then they have an itch on their nose, and then it's on their face, and then they touch their hair, and then it's in their hair, or something like that happens. So I think if we do have smocks down, if we can lay some sort of paper sheet down on their desks so that it's not gonna muck up their desk so much. Things like that. I think it's just a good habit to get into, because we're gonna revisit painting again, we're gonna revisit, you know, different things that they just have it in the process of, let's get our cover-ups on and our art shirts or whatever, and that type of thing.
I'll add right here, on the paints, there was obviously some people had difficulties with getting it on clothes and stuff. The acrylics, they are difficult, they can be. So what I'm gonna do is I want to ask an art place where I've gotten some paper to see if there's a good paint that's very washable. You know, I like the acrylics first because it just has such great color and good quality. But I don't want you guys to feel like stressed out about it. So I think what we'll do is we will include, I'm going to see if I can find a really good washable paint for our next painting adventures that's going to be after the new year. So, you know, I'd like to get something other than like Crayola. So that we can get the bright, vibrant colors that the kids, if they create a masterpiece, it can hang on the wall at their house for 30 years. So that's kind of my mindset, but I also don't want everybody to have anxiety over the different paints and getting on the kids and the table. So I'm going to look for something that will meet that need.
I've got something that would be, my vision for this project is, and we haven't really discussed it because we just talked to Patience a minute ago, Mrs. Williams had suggested to me, what if we, especially for the messy projects, which this is gonna probably be another messy project, if we could schedule it at a time and use the cafeteria and just put out tarps, and the kids can spread out a little bit more, and then just kind of lift the tarp up, like any little clay pieces, we could just tarp it off for a little bit, if it was at a time that obviously the children aren't eating, and we can do a good cleanup project. And then she had said, would you guys like me to come in and talk to the kids or work with the kids? And we just made a quick suggestion, but it'd be nice to have feedback from everybody here, what they're thinking, is that I'm doing first grade and second grade. If there was a time slot, like a 9:15 to a 10:15, that a few of the volunteers could get together for this project, so Patience could come in at one time for maybe first grade, or one time for second grade, or one time for third grade, and maybe not even for all the classes, because everybody needs flexibility in their schedules or work schedules. And then we could have her romping around with a few of the kids, and if we could take over the cafeteria for a little bit, just tarp it off, and if
I
we
think
come
it's
up
gonna
with
be
a
hard
date.
for us to do it, the cafeteria, this project, because we haven't in advance talked to the upper management.
Right.
With, you know, about it to get approval. But if we can, great, but it may just be hard, but going forward, it would be awesome to do, because spreading out is so much easier.
Or in State
For the kids.
Street, whoever's volunteering State Street, where the art masterpiece closet is, it is not being used by
yeah,
anybody.
absolutely, yeah.
So if we could, especially for this project, if they knew,
You could split them up.
you know, keep
yeah.
her, she was very willing to come in,
That's
so.
awesome.
That's
The other
nice
thing-
too, because it gives you an opportunity, like if we have plastic tablecloths or something, we can get set up ahead of time
Exactly.
without
Yeah.
disrupting what they're doing in their
Right.
classrooms.
And then
Mhm.
maybe if, you know, after this, or even now, if anybody wants to get together and that's doing one grade, that we could at least email her or say, give her options like, you know what, we might all be able to do this on the first week of December at this time, and just coordinate that.
Yeah.
You know, could even do one person, you know, one person present, the cleanup and whatever, just.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be really nice if she would come in, but she will, how could she ever come in for all of our
Yeah,
classes, you know?
right.
It's nice to
Some
see her, she's
classes,
got a
yeah.
great vibe, and
Yeah.
we can talk about it, but I think it'll take some
Yeah,
coordinating.
serious coordinating, yeah. And a lot of time commitment from her, which she's given up a lot already, just coming to the few meetings we've had.
Right, but she did, you know, she said, if it were a few times, if you, you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
I wonder if at Waterman, at one of the morning meetings on Friday or something, that she could come and just talk to the kids. It wouldn't
That's another
be,
good idea.
it wouldn't be working with them, but I wonder if doing all the second grade together in the cafeteria with her there might be overwhelming.
Maybe she could do a story time or something.
So maybe she could
Yeah.
just come in
Oh, that'd be
It's a
and,
great
cute,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be so
Yeah.
cool.
To come read her
They'll at
book.
least get a visual of her. and-
right.
But she could, because that's like 5 to 10 minutes in each room, and she could rotate, you know,
Right.
she did all first grade one week, or one day,
Yeah.
or all, yeah, whatever.
Read
But
at
she could
morning
read
meeting.
at morning meeting.
Yeah.
I
Right,
mean,
Friday
they're
morning
they're
meeting.
so
Yeah.
well behaved in there, it's so shocking. You know, they are. I mean, they could, it would be like family reading night, except it
Right.
would be with her at, yeah,
Yeah.
I like that idea.
The other thing that I thought, not to go totally off topic, that I thought was very cool that she addressed is getting her validation. So many of the artists that we talked about, you know, they question themselves. I mean, from last year and this year, they question themselves throughout their entire process. Here she is, hundreds of years later, from so many of these other artists that we've had, doing the same exact thing. And our kids are constantly questioning themselves in everything that we do. These are things to highlight, I think, when you are talking to them about it, or they're doing their art, or they're saying, oh, it's not right, or oh, it's not. I mean, asking those questions like, don't you remember when, you know, did Leonardo get it right the first time when he was trying to, how long did it take him to make the Mona Lisa? And how long, I mean, because they do remember those facts, and I think when you make those connecting pieces, it makes it more permanent, the information that they're learning, it kind of is staying there forever. So to be able to tie those in, I think is cool, and she said it right there, like, oh my gosh, yeah. But it's amazing that even in her lifetime, she's being paid for her artwork, where so many of these other artists didn't see any of it. They weren't recognized at all during their lifetime, so.
And just to point out that she didn't get into her.
Yeah, didn't
art
get into
school,
her art
and
school, but she kept
working.
going, absolutely, all super important things, you're so right.
And I really liked how she talked about needing to get into her mojo and
Yeah.
like physically
Mm-hmm.
getting warmed up and feeling right in her hand, and I think that's really important, because I've seen last year, I didn't do Monet this year yet, but I just saw some kids had such a struggle with getting started,
Like, where
and
do I
even
begin?
knowing
Yeah.
where to begin.
Yeah.
And I think when we can convey that and make it more relatable, that it's not them, that this is a process,
Right.
that is really valuable for them, and just challenging themselves and trusting that they can do it and
Yeah.
starting.
Right.
Well, I think that's like the beauty of this program is that it's so fluid and you don't have to do anything specific, but it can be so overwhelming for kids to, for anybody, but for kids to have really a wide range of to do anything and just be like, I don't know where I start.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Some need the guidelines and
Right.
others
Yeah,
want to explore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, I think just one of the big ways and one of the reasons I love this program when I started is that and to get the message across that to validate yourself instead of having everybody else validate you, which is inevitable, but is to not encourage the kids to make Van Gogh's flowers or Monet's bridge or whatever. It more the process. I think it's so much more about the process, and I think that inherently will make them believe that they can do it more than setting them up for this, that they have to achieve something in the end, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the
Going
experience.
with
it.
Yeah.
That's why we thought, like, if as long as they're working with the clay,
Right.
we're good. Like get them really involved in that,
Because that's really, they love clay and they hardly ever get to.
So they're gonna have pencils at their desk, they're gonna have, all rulers and other little things that are in their little cubbies or what have you, and they should have access to all of it and to manipulate their clay, not just their fingers. They can do whatever they want with it and let them have fun, as long as they're not taking each other out with it, but, the only thing they won't have are the knives, but, Whitney, you said you have access
We
to
can
a lot
put
of
those
plastic
right into the
knives,
storage.
so we'll put them in the bins but everything else, it should, if it's not in the bin or in the closet, it'll be in their classroom type of a thing.
Oh, and speaking of, another thought I had was about the Friday folder. Some follow-up with the teacher might be good. It sounds like there's gonna be a note in the bag with the piece of clay.
With the piece of clay,
But
yeah.
the teacher to send something home, whether an email or the Friday folder, just following up, like, as far as the drawing process.
Yeah,
Just because
okay.
I can see my own child like getting smushed.
Okay.
I know, I'll start to break down.
Yeah, so we'll put it in, we've got these little, cupcake holders, and they can put it in there depending on how big it is, or what they make, and then it'll go in the Ziploc baggie with that, maybe stapled to it. Yeah, so hopefully, again, it could be just a big blob, but it's theirs, and it'll be,
if they bring it home that day, I wonder too, because I haven't touched this stuff yet, like, if it does become a blob, can they reform it when they get home?
It'll take a
Okay.
while for it
Oh,
to dry,
okay.
because it takes,
Yeah, that's good.
you said 1 to 2 weeks, right?
Like,
Yeah.
If you guys are gonna cut the clay, I can, sometimes if you have like a little cardboard piece for it to sit on, it gives it like a little bit of, like backboard in the bag, so it doesn't like just crunch
Okay.
against it. I don't know.
Okay, good, yeah, let's talk about it, because I don't know any of
And
that.
then it can like sit on it, it doesn't have to sit on the counter.
Right, right, okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for tonight, I really appreciate it. Sorry we ran over a little bit, but that was a special treat to have her
It
with
sure
us.
was. In closing,
Fun
I'll
fact.
say, she's quite a celebrity, and in fact, she's going to be a celebrity bartender for us at a Krebs function for the Skinny Atlas Education Foundation, along with our own Shelley Kennedy and Sistina Giordano from Bridge Street. So that will be on December 7th. So I hope you'll all be able to join us for Celebrity Bartender Night at the Krebs.
So really be good.
Whimsical
to support
drinks,
her.
right?
Whimsical drinks.
The way she cuts the limes.
Right?